I'm Lorraine. Standing at the gate of the estate, watching the yellow taxi carrying that arrogant young man named Ethan disappear around the bend, a sense of relief washed over me. The sound of the gravel under the taxi's wheels, crunch, 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 was like the sound of defeat, and it marked the end of a long drawn-out battle. It all started when Ethan showed up at the estate. I was knee-deep in the flower beds, tending to the roses that old Mr. Thompson had spent decades cultivating. The summer heat in California was like a thick blanket, and the low hum of the estate's lawnmower was a distant backdrop. I had my granddaughter's playlist playing in one earbud as I worked. My hands were dirty, and I was wearing an old sun hat that had seen better days. To an outsider, I probably looked like just another gardener. Ethan pulled up in his sleek, chalk gray Lamborghini Huracan, not bothering to park on the gravel driveway. Instead, he drove right onto the perfectly manicured lawn, the tires churning up the Bermuda grass I'd spent weeks nurturing after a pest infestation. I didn't stand up right away. I just stopped pruning and waited for the engine to cut off. The silence that followed was heavy. The door of the car opened, and out stepped Ethan. He was dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than my annual salary, with shiny loafers and no socks. He had an expression on his face that made it clear he thought the air in California wasn't good enough for him. He looked at the house, then at the fountain, and finally down at me. "Hey," he barked, snapping his fingers as if I were a trained dog. "Where's the valet?" I stood up slowly, wiping my hands on my canvas apron. "We don't have a valet, Mr. Thompson. The staff parks around the back, and guests park on the gravel. You're currently parked on the irrigation system." He let out a dry, hollow laugh. "I'm not a guest, lady. I'm the owner." "Who are you? The weed lady?" I introduced myself as Lorraine, and he simply said, "Great, Lorraine. Grab my bags. The trunk's in the front. Try not to scratch the paint with those." He gestured at my dirty hands. I could have told him right then that I was the co-trustee of the Thompson Family Legacy Trust, the executor of Mr. Thompson's will, and the one who held the voting proxy for the board that decided his allowance. But Mr. Thompson, before he passed away from cancer, had given me a piece of advice: let them hang themselves. The rope is cheaper than the lyre. So, I played along. I walked over to the car, popped the trunk, and hauled out his 2 Gucci duffels, which weighed surprisingly little. "Heavy lifting for an old lady," he muttered, still tapping away on his phone. "Take them to the master suite and tell the butler I want a scotch, neat, no ice. And if I see a single dandelion on this lawn tomorrow, you're out." Then he walked up the steps of the mansion without even looking back. I stood there for a moment, feeling the heat from the car engine on my legs. Looking at the ruts his tires had made on the lawn, I thought to myself, he's worried about dandelions. He has no idea what he's gotten himself into. I left his bags by the car and walked to the small stone cottage that served as the estate management office. Inside, it was cool, with the smell of old paper and polish. I sat down at my desk, a large mahogany piece that Mr. Thompson had left for me. I unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out a thick, leather-bound binder. It was the Thompson Family Trust Governance and Behavioral Bylaws, amended in 2022. I opened it to page 12, a page I had memorized. The words on it were like weapons, especially Clause 3, Section B, about the treatment of legacy staff. I picked up my pen, a heavy Mont Blanc, and opened my logbook. I recorded the incident of Ethan's arrival, unauthorized vehicle on sensitive landscaping, verbal disparagement of the trustee acting as a groundskeeper, and the demand for menial labor outside my job description. As the days went by, Ethan's behavior got worse. On Tuesday, a van with a sign that said Urban Edge Interiors pulled up. 3 young men in skinny jeans and beanies hopped out. Ethan marched out, flanked by the lead designer. The wood paneling in the library is so old-fashioned. I want to rip it out and paint it white. And those books? Who reads them anymore? Let's turn the shelves into a sneaker display. I have a collection of Yeezys that need a home, he said. The library paneling was made of old-growth redwood, a rare and irreplaceable material that had been installed by Mr. Thompson's great-grandfather in 1918. I felt a pain in my chest, like the spirit of Mr. Thompson was trying to possess me to stop his grandson. But I held back. I waited until they went inside and then calmly walked to my cottage. I pulled out the historical preservation rider attached to the trust deed. Any structural alteration to the library required a unanimous vote by the Heritage Committee, which consisted of me and an 85-year-old historian named Dr. Miller, who always did what I asked because I brought him his favorite cigars every Christmas. I called the estate lawyer, Mr. Harris. He's trying to paint the redwood paneling, I told him. There was a long silence on the other end, then a sigh. Lorraine, please tell me you're joking. He wants to put sneakers on the shelves, Mr. Harris's Yeezys, with LEDs, I said. I'll draft the cease and desist, he replied, sounding tired. But we need more than bad taste to trigger the removal clause. Being a Philistine isn't technically a breach of fiduciary duty. Give me time, I said. He's just getting started. By Thursday, Ethan had fired the butler, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins had been with the family for 25 years and knew every nook and cranny of the estate. Ethan fired him because Mr. Jenkins didn't know how to make a proper matcha latte. He used the wrong kind of matcha, Lorraine, Ethan complained to me as I was weeding the petunias. Can you believe that? It's 2024. We use artisanal matcha. A tragedy, I said, pulling out a dandelion by the root. Mr. Jenkins has 2 kids in college. Well, maybe they can learn to make drinks, Ethan scoffed. I'm bringing in my own guy. He plays EDM while he works. Good energy. I noted this incident in my logbook: wrongful termination of key staff without cause, violation of the Employment Stability Agreement, and an unvetted replacement hire. Ethan continued to cause chaos. He insulted the chef, Mrs. Rodriguez, telling her that her paella was basic and demanding a raw vegan menu. Then, an hour later, he ordered pizza when he got hungry. On Friday night, he threw a pool party. His friends, a group of influencers who looked like they'd never done a day of manual labor in their lives, threw glass bottles into the infinity pool. I spent Saturday morning fishing shards of vodka bottles out of the filter. Hey, gardener, Ethan yelled from the balcony, holding a mimosa. The pool looks a little cloudy. Shock it again. I looked up at him. Need to order more chemicals, Mr. Thompson. The budget is tight this month. Budget? He laughed. I'm a Thompson. The budget is whatever I say it is. Just buy it. Put it on the black card. I smiled to myself. He didn't know that the black card was linked to the discretionary operations account, which had a spending cap. If exceeded by more than 20% in a single quarter, it would trigger an automatic audit. He was currently at 18%. Yes, sir, I said. I'll get right on that. I went back to the office and ordered the chemicals, along with top-tier imported fertilizers and new uniforms for the staff he hadn't fired yet. I pushed the account to 19.5%. On Saturday night, Ethan had a housewarming party. He invited 50 of his closest friends, people he'd met in clubs in Los Angeles. The bass was thumping so hard that I could feel it in the floorboards of my cottage. I put on my boots and walked around the perimeter to document the damage. The lawn was littered with cigarette butts, and someone had parked a Range Rover on the tennis court. The real horror was in the solarium. There was a beautiful marble statue of a woman, the Grace, commissioned by Mr. Thompson's father in Italy in 1948. Ethan was standing on the plinth next to the statue, drunk, holding a bottle of champagne. Look at this old thing, he shouted to the crowd. Creepy, right? She looks like she's judging me. Smash it, someone yelled. I'm going to give her a makeover, Ethan laughed. He pulled out a black marker from his pocket. I stepped out of the shadows. Mr. Thompson, I said. My voice was calm but firm. He spun around, nearly slipping. Whoa, the weed lady. What are you doing creeping around? You trying to steal booze? Get down from the statue, Ethan. I dropped the formality. Don't tell me what to do, he sneered. I own this place. I own you. He turned back to the statue and drew a mustache on the marble face. I felt a coldness in my stomach. I pulled out my phone, snapped a high-resolution photo, and then dialed Mr. Harris's private number. He defaced the grace, I said. Marker, permanent, in front of witnesses. I have photos. Okay, Mr. Harris said. That's vandalism of trust assets. That triggers Section 8. But we need the big one, Lorraine. We need the public termination. I know, I said. I'm going to give him the opportunity tomorrow. Sunday morning, I had organized the landscaping crew, 3 loyal guys, to work on the main terrace. I knew Ethan had guests staying over, a couple of angel investors he was trying to charm into funding his new app idea. At 10 a.m. Ethan stumbled onto the terrace, wearing sunglasses and a silk robe. His guests, a man and a woman in business casual, were scanning the grounds. Ethan was saying, "This is the estate, all mine, 250 acres. We're thinking of putting a helipad over there by the tree area." The arboretum, I corrected without looking up. My voice carried clearly in the quiet morning air. Ethan stiffened, and the guests looked down at me. "Excuse me," Ethan snapped. "It's called the Arboretum, Mr. Thompson," I said, snipping a dead head off a bloom. "And you can't put a helipad there. The ground is protected wetlands. Federal designation." The female investor raised an eyebrow. "Protected wetlands?" "Ethan, you said the zoning was clear." Ethan's face turned red. "It is clear. Don't listen to her. She's just the help." He leaned over the balcony. "Hey, Lorraine, shut up and cut the grass." "The grass is cut, sir," I said calmly. "I'm pruning the hydrangeas. If I don't do it now, they won't bloom in August." "I don't care about August," Ethan screamed. His voice cracked. "I care about you knowing your place. You're embarrassing me." "I'm stating facts, sir," I said. I stood up, took off my sun hat, and looked him in the eye. "Perhaps if you read the estate survey, you'd know about the wetlands." That was the last straw. Ethan lost it. He threw his mimosa glass, and it shattered on the flagstones near my boot. "You insolent old hag," he shrieked. "You think you can talk back to me, in my house, in front of my guests? You are fired." I reached into my apron pocket, pulled out my phone, and dialed Mr. Harris. I put it on speaker. "It's done," I said. "Did he use the words?" Mr. Harris asked. "He yelled 'You are fired' and terminated in front of 2 witnesses and the landscaping crew," I said. "And you have not been authorized for termination by the board." "No, sir," I confirmed. "Okay, Mr. Harris said. "Triggering the Inheritance Clause 12C. Freezing assets in 3, 2, 1. Ethan's phone buzzed, and so did the female investors. His face went pale. "What the? Has my card declined?" he muttered. He looked down at me. "I told you to leave," he screamed, but there was fear in his voice. "I can't, Ethan," I said. "I have work to do, and technically, you're trespassing." It took 45 minutes for Mr. Harris to arrive. In the meantime, Ethan tried to call the police, but the dispatcher, who was my old friend, just kept him on hold. When Mr. Harris showed up in his black Lincoln Town car, Ethan thought it was backup. Mr. Harris walked up the steps, briefcase in hand. Ethan shouted at him, "Are you the firm's rep?" "Good. This woman refuses to leave. She's trespassing. I want her arrested. And I want to know why my accounts are frozen. Is it a glitch?" Mr. Harris didn't answer right away. He walked past Ethan, placed his briefcase on the antique entry table, and opened it. "Mr. Thompson," he said in a deep, baritone voice. "I am Henry Harris, legal counsel for the Thompson Legacy Trust. You are a beneficiary of the trust, and there's a significant difference between that and being the owner." Ethan pointed at me. "Fix my cards and fire her." Mr. Harris turned to me. "Lorraine, would you confirm the events of this morning?" I recited what had happened. Ethan yelled, "Lies. I don't need a board to fire a gardener." Mr. Harris handed a document to Ethan. "Actually, you do. Read Clause 12C, Paragraph 2. It was added in 2022. Any beneficiary who terminates a steward of record, defined as a staff member with more than 15 years of tenure or trustee status, without unanimous authorization from the governance board, shall act in breach of the Good Stewardship Covenant." Ethan scanned the page. "So what? I breached a covenant. Send me a fine. I'll pay it when you unlock my money." "You didn't read the penalty, Ethan," I said. Mr. Harris continued, "The penalty for such a breach is the immediate suspension of all discretionary access. Your beneficiary status is downgraded to conditional resident. All financial accounts are frozen pending a full tribunal review. Control of the estate reverts to the coat trustee." Ethan looked at me in shock. "Coat trustee? You? The weed lady?" "I'm the person who decides if you get to eat this month, Ethan," I said. "And right now, I'm not feeling very generous." Ethan frantically called his father, but his father left him a voicemail saying he was on his own. He was trapped in the mansion, with a fully stocked wine cellar he couldn't open and a pantry full of food he didn't know how to cook. On Tuesday, Mr. Harris and a forensic appraiser named Mr. Clark came to assess the damage. In the library, the designers had sanded down a patch of the redwood paneling. Mr. Clark estimated the damage to be $10,000. In the kitchen, the industrial stove was covered in burnt food, and the damage was estimated at $3,500. The damage to the Grace statue was estimated at $16,000. In total, Ethan had caused about $40,000 in physical damages in 1 week. Ethan also threatened to sue, claiming I had forged his signature on the arrival documents. But I had a USB drive with footage from my body cam, showing him signing the papers, calling me names, and admitting he didn't read them. I also had footage of him drunk on the statue, firing me, and trying to bribe the pool boy to buy him drugs. On Wednesday morning, I set up a small table on the east veranda. I sat there sipping Earl Grey, watching the sun rise over the valley. Ethan appeared, looking rough. His hair was matted, and his eyes were bloodshot. He stared at the scones on the table. "Is that breakfast?" he asked, his voice cracked. "It's my breakfast," I said, buttering a scone. "Mrs. Rodriguez makes a lovely strawberry jam." He slumped into a chair opposite me. "This is insane, Lorraine. You can't starve me. You have a trust fund, Ethan, the basic one your mother set up. It pays out $1,800 a month." $1,800? "That's not even rent," he said, horrified. "It is in some places," I said. "But here, you need the legacy trust, and you lost that." He begged me to turn the money back on. "I can change. I'll apologize to Mr. Jenkins. I'll apologize to the statue. I put down my teacup. It's not a light switch, Ethan. It's a contract. You broke the covenant. You proved that you care more about your ego than this family's history. I slid a heavy envelope across the table. This is a one-way ticket to New York, Coach, and a check for $4,000 from my personal account. I'm paying for peace and quiet. The board voted to terminate your residency. You have 1 hour to vacate the guest cottage. Frank will drive you to the airport. He asked if he could take a scone. It was the first humble thing he'd said all week. Take 2. It's a long flight, I said. He grabbed the scones, stuffed them into his pockets, and walked away without saying thank you. I watched him disappear down the long driveway, dragging his scuffed Louis Vuitton bags behind him. The sound of